Your choice reveals a recurring pattern, not because a compass has magic in it, but because the mind is rarely random when it reaches for a symbol. In a Jungian test like this, the image that pulls you first often reflects the way your inner world searches for direction when life feels heavy, uncertain, or painfully repetitive. A compass is a quiet but powerful symbol. It does not create the path, yet it points toward an unseen force. That is why it fits Jung's test so well. Many people think they are simply choosing what looks beautiful, strong, mysterious, or familiar, while something deeper is already speaking through the choice. Sometimes what attracts you is not what you want, but what your psyche has been using for protection, for control, for comfort, or for survival. So before you explain anything to yourself, slow down just enough to notice what pulls you first. Look at the 5 compasses and choose one, from 1 to 5. Do not overthink it. Do not test yourself. Do not search for the perfect answer. Your first impression matters more than logic here, because the first movement of the psyche often arrives before the usual defenses begin to organize a story. Stay with your choice, even if another part of you starts to doubt it a second later. That small moment of certainty is important. It can reveal more than long analysis ever does. And stay with me until the end, because I am going to connect your choice to one concrete and practical action you can take today, something small but real, so this does not remain only a symbolic reflection. Only at the end will the full meaning begin to open. But first, pause the video and leave your name in the comments, because a symbol becomes more alive when it is witnessed, and this Jungian test gains meaning when you allow your choice to become personal. If you chose option 1, this usually happens when a part of you is tired of chaos and quietly longs for a life that feels steady, readable, and safe again. Stay with me, because this choice says more than it seems to say. A bronze compass is not loud, but it is serious. It belongs to the old symbolic world of maps, rules, seasons, and direction that must be earned, not guessed. In simple Jungian language, this often points to the part of the psyche that learned to survive by becoming reliable. It is the inner guardian, the keeper of order, the one who says, if I remain composed, nothing will fall apart. Pay attention to this, because the light in this archetype is beautiful. It gives endurance, loyalty, dignity, and the ability to protect what matters when everyone else becomes confused. But every light casts a shadow. Jung reminded us that the shadow is not only what is dark, but also what has been pushed out of sight. So the shadow here is often softness, spontaneity, need, grief, even honest tiredness. You may look calm while carrying more pressure than people notice. You may call it responsibility, but sometimes it is fear wearing a noble face. Here is the pattern. When life once felt unpredictable, structure became your shelter. When people were inconsistent, you became consistent. When emotions were messy, you became precise. That adaptation may have saved you, but now notice the hidden cost. You can become so devoted to holding the line that you forget to ask whether the line still serves your life. A concrete example makes this clearer. Imagine someone at work who always prepares early, solves problems before they grow, answers messages quickly, and becomes the stable center of the team. Everyone trusts that person. Everyone depends on that person. Yet at home, that same person struggles to rest, feels irritated when plans change, and cannot enjoy a quiet evening without thinking of what still needs to be managed. Outwardly, it looks like strength. Inwardly, it can feel like never being allowed to set the armor down. Notice the loop. You create order, order creates safety, safety becomes identity, and identity starts to fear anything alive, unexpected, or vulnerable. Do not miss that. Option 1 does not mean you are cold. It often means your heart learned to wear discipline, so it would not be disappointed again. There is wisdom in that, and there is pain in that too. The deeper message of this compass is not that you need less strength. It is that your strength may be ready to become more human. Not weaker, more human. Not careless, more alive. Today, choose one small area of your day that you usually over-control. Set a timer for 12 minutes and do nothing to optimize it. Do not fix, arrange, check, or prepare. Just sit with the discomfort and ask yourself, what feeling arrives when I stop managing everything? That answer is not your weakness. It is the hidden part of you asking to be included. If you choose option 2, this message usually appears when one part of you wants to move forward, speak clearly, and trust what it feels, while another part keeps stepping in with questions, caution, and one more layer of thought. Stay with me, because this is subtle. This blue compass does not look dramatic, yet it carries a very precise kind of tension. It shines with cold clarity. It suggests control, distance, and the wish to understand before surrendering. In simple Jungian language, this often belongs to the inner analyst, the one who learned that if everything can be named, measured, or anticipated, then nothing painful will arrive without warning. The light in this pattern is real. It gives perception, intelligence, restraint, and the ability to notice details other people miss. But the shadow also grows in silence. The shadow here is not a lack of feeling. It is feeling that has been pushed behind thought, hidden behind logic, delayed behind explanation. That is why desire and fear become so entangled. You want the new step, but you also want total certainty. You want closeness, but you also want protection. You want truth, but only after it has been made safe. Pay attention to this image. The surface is calm, almost elegant, but beneath it there is movement, current, pressure. That is often how this pattern lives inside a person. Outwardly composed, inwardly negotiating with every possible outcome. A clear example is very ordinary. You receive a message from someone important to you. You read it once, then again. You feel the impulse to answer honestly, maybe warmly, maybe directly. But then the mind begins its work. What did they really mean? What is the best tone? What reply keeps dignity without sounding distant? What if I say too much? What if I say too little? 10 minutes pass, then 30. Then the moment loses its living heat, and what could have been simple becomes heavy. This is the internal conflict. The heart moves first. Fear arrives second. The mind takes the wheel third. And after a while, it all starts to look like prudence, when in truth it may be avoidance wearing a polished face. Jung would say the psyche always pays a price for what it pushes into the shadow. When instinct is distrusted for too long, life becomes accurate but thin. Here is the mini-climax, and do not miss it. The thing you keep waiting for may not be clarity. It may be permission to be imperfect. That changes everything. Because option 2 often appears when your soul is not asking for a better theory. It is asking for a cleaner act of trust, not a reckless act, a living one. Today, set a timer for 15 minutes. Choose one small decision you have been postponing. Write down in one sentence what you really want, in one sentence what you fear, and before the timer ends, take one visible step. Send the message, make the call, confirm the plan, or decline it plainly. Let action interrupt the loop. That moment of movement is how the hidden part of you begins to come back into the light. If you could choose 3, it is often because something in you is tired of standing at the edge of your own life, feeling the pull to move and the fear of choosing at the exact same time. This compass carries an old traveler's energy. It looks worn, thoughtful, tested by distance, as if it has already crossed storms and still does not rush. In Jungian language, that matters. It often points to a schema built around adaptation, the kind that forms when peace once depended on reading the room, adjusting your tone, and becoming the version of yourself that kept things smooth. Over time, that can become a persona so polished that even you forget where it ends and where your real desire begins. Stay with me here, because this is where avoidance becomes quiet and clever. It does not always look like running away. Sometimes it looks like waiting for one more sign, one more confirmation, one more perfect moment. Sometimes it looks like being reasonable for so long that your own inner voice starts sounding distant. You may say you are still thinking, still weighing, still observing, but deep down the real tension is simpler. If I choose, I become visible. If I commit, I cannot hide inside possibility anymore. That is why option 3 carries a strange emotional ache. It is the ache of someone who can feel the path, but keeps asking life to choose first. Think of a very ordinary scene. A person knows they need to answer an email about a new opportunity at work. It is a good opportunity, not perfect, but alive. They open the message in the morning, then close it. They tell themselves they will answer after lunch. After lunch, they decide they need a clearer mind. By evening, they are reading the message again, not because they do not understand it, but because commitment has started to feel heavier than uncertainty. In relationships, it can happen the same way. You know a conversation needs to happen. You know what is true, but you keep adjusting the timing, softening the words, waiting for a sign that makes courage unnecessary. Here's an unexpected twist. The deeper fear is not always making the wrong choice. Often it is becoming the person who can no longer pretend not to know. That is the real threshold. Jung would say the psyche suffers when the persona becomes too narrow for the life trying to emerge. And see what happens next. The more you delay, the more the avoided choice begins shaping your mood, your body, your patience, even your sense of self. What looked like caution starts becoming drift, but this compass also carries a gift. It belongs to people with sensitivity, perception, flexibility, and depth. You can read nuance. You can sense hidden movement. You can survive complicated spaces. The task now is not to become harsher. It is to become truer. Today, choose one pending decision you have delayed for at least 3 days. Write down the exact commitment in one sentence, set a timer for 15 minutes, and complete the first irreversible step before the timer ends. Send it, schedule it, confirm it, or speak it aloud to the person involved. Do not improve it after. Let the act stand. Because sometimes the path does not become clear before commitment. Sometimes clarity only arrives after you stop avoiding the life that is already asking for your name. If you chose 4, this often happens when the part of you that wants control is stronger than the part of you that trusts surrender, and losing your grip on one thing feels dangerously close to losing yourself. Stay with me, because this choice is intense in a quiet way. A golden compass with a bright center does not simply point. It claims the center. It wants the map to stay visible, the route to stay clear, the meaning to stay in your hands. In simple Jungian language, this can reflect a powerful persona built around strength, competence, and command. The light in that pattern is real. It gives you presence, standards, courage, and the ability to hold direction when other people collapse into confusion. But the shadow grows beside it. The shadow here is not weakness. It is the hidden fear of being vulnerable, displaced, surprised, or changed by something you cannot master. That is why limitation feels personal to you. That is why uncertainty feels louder than it does for other people. You may tell yourself that you simply like things done properly, and sometimes that is true. But there is often more underneath. There is an old tension between holding and letting go, between shaping life and trusting that life will not erase you if you soften. Pay attention to this, because you repeat this pattern more often than you let yourself admit. You do it in small moments, in private moments, in places where no one would call it fear because it looks so much like discipline. Imagine an ordinary day. You are waiting for an answer from someone, maybe from work, maybe from a relationship, maybe from a family situation that matters more than you say out loud. Instead of waiting, you start adjusting everything around it. You rewrite a message 3 times. You plan what you will say if the answer is good, and what you will say if the answer is disappointing. You clean, organize, prepare, review, anticipate. Outwardly it seems productive. Inwardly it is a way of refusing the helplessness of not knowing. Or think of another scene. A friend asks you a simple question that requires honesty. Are you in or not? Do you want this or not? And instead of a clean answer, you buy time, not because you have no answer, but because once you say yes or no, something becomes real, and reality means change. In the short language of Jungian symbolism, this is where the shadow speaks. It says, if I do not control the threshold may control me. If I do not manage the transition, I may lose status, safety, love, or identity. But here is the deeper truth. The part of you that seeks control is not your enemy. It was often formed by moments when being prepared really did matter. It may have protected your dignity. It may have helped you survive disappointment. The problem begins when protection becomes a prison. Then the same strength that once saved you starts keeping life at a distance. Notice the mini-climax here. What you fear losing may not be the situation itself. It may be the image of yourself that has to remain composed, central, and unshaken. And that is why this compass appears now. Not to shame your need for power, but to show you where power has become armor. Today, choose one unresolved situation in your life that has been living in ambiguity, set 10 quiet minutes aside, and give it a clear yes or a clear no. Send the answer, speak the answer, or write the answer and deliver it before the day ends. Do not soften it into maybe. Do not hide it inside explanation. Let your decision stand in plain language, because the life that is trying to reach you may need less control from you and more truth. If you chose 5, this often appears when your inner life is no longer satisfied with maintaining the old order, and something in you is asking for movement, for rupture, for a more honest direction that cannot be postponed much longer. This is the compass of transformation. It does not whisper about comfort. It points toward change. In simple Jungian language, this can be linked to individuation, which is just a clear way of saying that a person slowly becomes more whole when they stop living only through habit, fear, or performance, and begin integrating the parts of themselves they once kept divided. Pay attention to that word, integrating. It means courage because it asks you to stop pretending that the life which fits badly still fits well enough. It means dynamism, because the psyche wants growth, not endless repetition. And it means responsibility, because once you see what no longer belongs to you, you cannot fully go back to sleep. The light in this pattern is powerful. It brings instinct, renewal, creative force, and the strange strength that appears when someone finally decides to live in a more aligned way. But the shadow is close too. The shadow can make transformation look like constant escape, constant restarting, constant craving for a new horizon without staying long enough to embody the change. So this choice is not only about freedom, it is about truthful freedom. Not movement for distraction, but movement with meaning. Here is what this often looks like in daily life. A person knows a conversation needs to happen. They have delayed it for weeks because they do not want to disrupt the atmosphere, disappoint someone, or open a new chapter before they feel fully ready. At the same time, they can feel the tension everywhere. In the body, in the morning routine, in the way small tasks start to feel heavier than they should, or someone keeps promising themselves they will change one daily habit that is draining their energy. Maybe the late-night scrolling, the constant availability, the automatic yes they give to things they no longer want. They know the pattern, they know the cost, but the old order has one advantage: it is familiar, and familiarity can feel safer than truth, even when it is slowly suffocating you. This is where Jung becomes useful in a very human way. He reminds us that growth is not becoming someone else, it is becoming more fully yourself. That is why option 5 carries a firm message. The life ahead of you may not require a huge dramatic leap first. It may require one honest act that breaks the spell of postponement. Notice this carefully. The turning point is often smaller than the fear surrounding it. A message sent, a plan cancelled, a boundary spoken, a habit interrupted, a drawer emptied, a truth admitted. And yet that small act changes the map, because after it you know you have crossed something. That is the internal highlight here. Part of you is already at the threshold. Part of you already knows. What you call confusion may actually be resistance to the cost of becoming clearer. Today, choose one decision or habit you have been delaying, because you know it will change the rhythm of your life, and take one irreversible step within the next 15 minutes. Send the message you have avoided. Remove the number, cancel the commitment, throw away the object tied to the old version of you, or say the sentence that cannot be unsaid. Make it small, make it clean, but make it final, because this compass does not appear when your soul needs another excuse. It appears when your life is ready for a new shape. Now you can see that all 5 choices were never really about an object alone. They were about the way the psyche tries to protect itself when life becomes uncertain, when an old tension returns, when a hidden fear starts moving beneath the surface again. One choice leaned toward control, one moved toward distance, one hesitated at the threshold, one tried to hold the center, one was already asking for transformation. Different forms, same human pattern. This is what makes a symbolic test meaningful in Jungian language. The symbol is simple, but the reaction to it is not. A person does not choose only with taste. A person often chooses with memory, with repetition, with old survival logic, with what once felt necessary in order to stay safe, loved, useful, composed, or unseen. That is why avoidance can wear many faces. Sometimes it looks like overthinking. Sometimes it looks like discipline. Sometimes it looks like loyalty. Sometimes it looks like strength. Sometimes it even looks like freedom. But underneath those different styles, there is often the same quiet mechanism. A part of you has learned to repeat what once reduced pain, even if that same pattern now limits your life. Jung would say that what stays unconscious does not disappear. It turns into pattern. It turns into mood. It turns into delay. It turns into attraction. It turns into the kind of choice that seems small on the surface, but carries a whole story inside it. And yet this is the hopeful part. The fact that you can recognize the pattern means you are no longer completely trapped inside it. Recognition is already movement. Awareness is already a form of change. The shadow loses some of its power the moment it is seen without shame. That is why this ending is not really an ending. It is a new beginning. You may have come here curious about a compass, but what you found was a clearer image of the way your inner world searches for direction. That matters. It matters because naming a pattern is different from obeying it. It matters because once you see the loop, you can interrupt it. It matters because integration begins when you stop saying this is just how I am and start asking what in me is still acting from an older fear. There is no wrong result here. There is only a different doorway into the same deeper work. The goal was never to judge your response. The goal was to make it visible enough that you can carry it into real life with more honesty. That is where change becomes real. That is where symbolism becomes action. That is where the real test begins after this video. Today, before you make your next small decision, pause for one quiet minute and ask yourself whether this choice is coming from clarity or from repetition, from truth or from avoidance, from the life you are building now, or from the version of you that once needed protection more than freedom. Then choose one tiny act that belongs to your present self and complete it before the day ends. Send the message. Speak the truth. Decline what drains you. Confirm what matters. Begin what you keep postponing. Let it be simple, but let it be real, because the greatest shift is not becoming someone else all at once. It is becoming more faithful to what has been trying to emerge in you all along. If this spoke to something real in you, do not leave quietly as if it meant nothing. Moments like this pass quickly, and when they pass without a response, the old pattern usually takes the space back again. So let this moment become visible. Please indicate your chosen number in the comments. Please type your name. That small act matters more than it seems, because when you name your choice, you stop hiding from what stirred inside you, and you give this reflection a place in the real world instead of leaving it floating in silence. Maybe one line from your reading stayed with you. Maybe one part felt uncomfortably true. Maybe you saw yourself more clearly than you expected. That is exactly why you should answer now. While the feeling is still alive and before the mind begins to turn it into something distant, polished, and easy to forget. Let your number be seen. Let your name be seen. Let this be the point where your inner life stops being only something you carry alone and becomes something you consciously witness. And if this opened a door in you, even a small one, do not close it too fast. Like this. Subscribe. Stay close to this kind of work if you want more than distraction, if you want language for what you feel, symbols that help you see yourself, and moments that gently push you back toward your own truth. There are times when one image says more than a long explanation, and there are times when one honest choice reveals the pattern beneath many years. That is why I want you to keep going, not later, now, while your attention is still connected to what you felt here. Do not tell yourself you will come back another day. The part of you that delays what matters is already strong enough. Give a different part of you the lead this time. Watch the next test on your screen right now. Let this be more than a passing video. Let it be the beginning of a clearer conversation with yourself. One honest choice after another, one symbol after another, one small awakening at a time.